just stumbled upon JK'z Rewatchable.
I don't think so. And this time Skype is working. It only took us 6 minutes to get everybody on the call. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, J-Dubs. I am having a fantastic day after 3 shitty days at work. This is JK'z Rewatchable Hour. I'm extra happy today. We have a great show for you, ladies and gentlemen. As always, this has become the ritual I always do, depending on where you're looking at your screen, because whatever I tell you, when we upload it, it's not going to be the same. So, below me is Mr. Pornstash Eric Evans. To the right of him, in the middle, is the vivacious Becky Cherwalk. To the right of her is tight end Jackie Lynch. And above her is Shuttlecock George Muzzy. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is JK'z Rewatchable Hour. We are doing unsolved mysteries and unexplained things. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Doing awesome. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Well, as you guys know, I had a horrible 3 shitty days, but today was a great day. So, hey, you know what? Let's just have a rockin' show. Let's do what we do, because we are not your average podcast. And I love seeing your beautiful faces, especially you, George Muzzy. Got to get you in the shower sometime.
Of course.
And with that, George, take it away with your unsolved mystery.
Okay, we're going to start with the story of Billy the Kid. Everybody knows a little bit about Billy the Kid, notorious gangster and murderer back in the Old West. So where he was born is uncertain, but he was born around November or December in 1859. Believed in New York City's East Side. They believed his name at birth was Henry McCarty. Over the years, he used the alias William H. Bonney, Henry Antrim, also known as Billy the Kid. His family moved to Kansas, Colorado, and then New Mexico. He began his life of crime at an early age, stealing and gambling. He's most known for his run with the regulators and his participation in the Lincoln County Wars. Now, I'm going to give some truths and some false statements that Pat Garrett, who wrote a book about Billy the Kid, and that book is this right here, written by Patrick Floyd Garrett, and some of the things in the book are factual and some of them are false. The first truth is that everybody remembers in the movie, the first movie, Young Guns. They were in the tavern and the bounty hunter was in there bragging about he was going to be the one that killed Billy the Kid, and Billy the Kid ended up killing him in the bar right there. That is actual truth. There's many witnesses to that fact that he did that. Now, there's a false thing that Pat Garrett talks about. They were held up in the lawyer's house. And even in the movie, it says there must be 30 or 40 boys in that house. And when I think 4 of them escaped, and they did not find the bodies or any remnants of more than 10 people inside the house. So the fact that he claimed that there was 30 or 40 boys in there, just because they were holding off an entire onslaught of 100 to 200 people that were attacking the house. Another fact is, another false statement by Pat Garrett was he claimed that Deputy Bob Ollinger loaded his shotgun with 18 dimes in each barrel, actual dimes. And which doesn't make any sense because in today's day, you can buy a shotgun shell. You could buy a box of shotgun shells, but but in today's market, they would be worth anywhere from 90 cents to $2 a shell. So why would you in the 1870s or in early 1880s waste $1.80? And I've seen a documentary at one point where they actually shot 18 pieces of metal that resemble what dimes would have been made of back then. And it barely penetrated a pig's leg. Like they had the leg of a pig unskinned, and it barely penetrated the skin. So obviously that was false. Something true. I got a small disclaimer to this fact. The people of the show do not reflect what this statement says. But I have to do it word for word for the truth. In the movie, Dave Rudabaugh said that he had killed 21 men, not including Mexicans and Indians. That is false in a way. Billy the Kid actually was famous for saying that multiple times.
I did not know that.
Yes. Yes, it was Billy the Kid that had said that, but they wanted to put that in the movie. And unfortunately, the famous line that everybody likes from the movie, "I'll make you famous," Billy the Kid was not known for saying that.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that was just for movie, for Hollywood. For Hollywood. Another false statement. Pat Garrett, in his book, claims that John W. Poe and Thomas Kip McKinney didn't know Billy the Kid. Other sources, including the two, say that they knew him really well. John W. Poe has actually played poker with Billy the Kid on several occasions. So now, according to Pat Garrett, I'm going to tell of the accounts that happened on July 14th, 1881. In Fort Sumter, near midnight, Poe, McKinney, and Garrett go to Pete Maxwell's house. Garrett leaves Poe and McKinney on the porch and goes to Maxwell's bedroom. He stands next to the bed and he asks Pete, where was Billy? Pete said he's been around, but I haven't seen him in a while. He may have left. Then a man rushes in, sprang quickly into the door, looking back and called twice in Spanish, "Who comes there?" No one replied, and he came in. He wasn't wearing a hat, and he was only in a pair of socks. He was holding a revolver in his right hand and a butcher knife in his left. He approached Garrett. Before he reached the bed, he asked Pete, "Who is it, Pete?" He received no reply. Garrett thought it might be Pete's brother-in-law, Manuel Abreu, who was wanting to know what Poe and McKinney's business was. He approached the bed, almost touching Pat's knee, and whispered, "Who are they? No, who are they, Pete?" Then Pete said, "That's him." The kid must have noticed at the same time. He raised his pistol close to Garrett and quickly retreated across the room. He cries, "KNS, KNS, who's that? Who's that?" Garrett drew his revolver and fired and fired through his body and threw his body aside and fired again. To no avail, the kid was already dead. Poe and McKinney threw their guns down and yelled, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." Garrett told him he got the kid. They both asked Garrett had he shot the wrong man. He then mentions in his book that neither man knew the kid. On July 15th, 1881, later that day, The Undertaker says that the bullet that killed the kid came from Garrett's gun. The court said it was a justified kill and he was buried that day. It is claimed that Billy fired even though no bullet was found. Later, both Poe and McKinney said Garrett did not kill Billy, like years later, like decades later. And Poe even published a narrative that contradicted Garrett's. So in today's technology, it takes days to determine if a bullet came from my gun into someone else. But literally, the Undertaker figured it out that day.
That day, right?
And the court justified the killing, basically so Billy could be in the ground really quick and possibly not reveal that it wasn't him. Now, a lot of people have heard of Brushy Bill Roberts, who came around in the mid to late 1940s, claiming to be Billy the Kid. They didn't have enough evidence to prove that he was or was not. So, but he wanted his pardon that he had been promised. And he never got it, and he died in 1951 in Waco, Texas. But, I mean, so, you know, it could be either way at this point. But now, after searching on the internet for some of my information, a book showed up, like somebody liked Amazon, and it said, Billy the Kid, autobiography, the Brushy Bill Roberts story. I didn't know there was a book until this morning.
Yep.
So, but that's where the mystery is was he killed by Pat Garrett, or did he escape and live for another 70 years?
So, maybe our listeners obviously don't know, George and I are huge Billy the Kid fans. And two of my favorite movies of all time happen to be Young Guns 1 and 2. Now, I can't really say that it's all true, but I'd like to think that, the part, if you've ever seen the movie, the first one where it said an unknown person snuck into the grave and chiseled pals, right? If you ever watched, I like to think that was true. I knew that when we were going to do the show, I researched just to see. There is no definitive answer whether or not that was true. Just like if you watch part 2, it starts off with Brushy Bill Roberts talking to a lawyer in the 50s, and that's what he was referring to as, because he had many aliases back then. So, and George showed me the book months ago, and I'm like, I've got to read it, but it's very important to George. So if I ever do get a chance to read it, I'm going to be extra careful with it.
You will. Next time I see you, I'll make sure to have it. It's
Absolutely.
Just letting you know, it's an old book. They haven't printed it since 1954.
Right.
I have a 1954 copy.
So Pat Garrett's book was a flop.
Yeah.
Because obviously where this whole place took place, Billy the Kid was held to a high standard from the Mexican people that he was around, or the Indians, or whichever ones they were, and they liked Pat Garrett. But then when Pat Garrett he turned himself against Billy the Kid and everybody for money and prestige and all that, so they didn't like him. So that's why it was probably a flop. But what's your guys' input on Billy the Kid? We've all seen the movie. We all know the famous Bon Jovi song. So, and I know Becky's going to break into chorus. I thought she was. My bad. Go ahead.
Going down in a blaze of glory.
Oh, wow. She was waiting on that one, ladies and gentlemen. Eric, Becky?
I believe Billy the Kid was Bushy, whatever.
Brushy Bill Roberts.
Yep.
It's very possible that was him. Out of all the things that I've read about it, that one does seem a little more believable than others. We hear the stories of how Pat Garrett supposedly shot him in the back, so he didn't even know who he was. He didn't know what he looked like. He just shot at someone. It might not have been him. You never know, because back they didn't keep records like we do now.
Right.
They just tossed them into a hole, you know in a hole, and did whether it was by himself or with several other people. They didn't do things the way we do now. They don't have the records that say exactly when they died and how they died, and it's very possible that could have been him.
Yeah.
I don't think it was
ages and things.
I don't think it was Mythbusters that I watched, but it was somebody that said, they were going to do the 18 dimes in a barrel, and the particular gun. I don't think it was Mythbusters. I can't remember what it was. And they went to go fire, and it just didn't go. It didn't come out of the barrel. So now whether or not it was the same exact gun, but
the one I watched, they came out of the barrel, but they just
right.
it just didn't do much damage. I mean, it was going to hurt, but it's not going to kill you. And and the story goes that Billy the Kid shot Bob Ollinger with that gun.
Yep.
Because he had left it in the jailhouse when he escaped. So he shot him with that gun. But it says that that killed him. So he must have had real shells. And like I said, it doesn't make any sense in it had to have been 1880 or 1881.
Especially back then, $1 was worth a lot of.
Yeah. And like I said, in today's market, for 90 cents to about $2, you can buy a shell. I mean, you buy them in a box. You don't buy one at a time. So in 1880, why would you waste $1.80?
Right.
Twice. Because it was a double barrel.
Back then, you could probably get a box of shells for 10 cents or less.
Right.
Back then. So that would kind of. It probably is like one of those tall tales that got spun out of control about, what? Stop.
So, George, I was just researching. The Lincoln County War was around 1878, so it's about that time frame. So,
well, I'm saying 1880 or 1881 because it was July of 1881 that Garrett claimed to kill Billy.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was captured for the last time wasn't that long before. So it was probably the spring, I would say late spring, maybe even early summer of 1881 is what I would guess. I don't think it says what year Bob Ollinger was killed. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine it had to be right around that time.
I would just like to give my my opinion here. If who's ever listening have never seen that movie, go watch Young Guns 1 and 2. Great cast, everything, and there was a lot of actual events, and I'm looking like I can't remember the person who took all in everybody on his farm. But that's true though.
Yeah,
and that part is true. I just can't think. I'm drawing a blank, and I don't want to research it because then I look like a fake. But that part is true, and I highly recommend go watch the movie. It's great. You can find it anywhere. Young Guns 1, Young Guns 2. It's great. Love the movie.
Right. I mean, my take on it is that I really don't know a lot about it. I haven't seen those movies in many years, but just gathering what we've been talking about. Yeah, if you watch any Western movie back in those days or anything like that, they never always carried one gun. They always had more than one gun. So what says that the gun that he supposedly put the dimes in or whatever actually killed him, he could have staged it, used that gun, and then, right behind it was something that meant something. So that's just my take on any kind of a Western, unsolved mystery or even a solved mystery, murder, whatever, in those days and years. They always had more than one because
Mhm.
the guns weren't really that reliable. They're old. You know, you always had to have a backup because you never knew who you were going to fight, you know, that day. You know, out in the middle of a saloon, you know, out of a saloon fight or in the middle of a dirt road or wherever, you know. They didn't have things like we got nowadays, you know. You didn't have cars and
Absolutely.
horses
Agreed.
and all that kind of stuff. So you didn't have a plan of attack to get out of there. So you had to make it count, you know, whatever you're trying to prove. But
No, I agree. Absolutely. I think it would be really cool to find out legitimate proof if and what, but obviously we never will. But you know,
There'd only be one way because the grave site because they don't know the actual location of Billy the Kid's grave in Fort Sumner they say because of storms and different things, and they don't know which gravestone is his and whatnot. The only way really to prove it would be you'd have to find where Billy the Kid's mother is passed away, where she was buried, and they know where she was buried,
Mhm.
and dig up Brushy Bill Roberts.
that's true.
I
If
would.
they have matching DNA, if they have 50% matching DNA,
Right.
that's
Yep. I agree. Yep. So
that'd be the only way. Because you're never gonna find Billy the Kid's body if he really was buried in Fort Sumner, because they said that the grave site is destroyed now.
yeah. I remember.
I think it was just their way of hiding if he really was there.
I remember. The famous line from part 2 is like, you know, you who I'll make you famous. Like that was like the thing to say to people, and you know, it was a catchphrase, and I think I'm going to start using it again. I'm going to bring it back. So you who I'll make you famous.
Unfortunately, it didn't really happen. Unfortunately.
I know, but
I used to always say when like a bunch of us were getting ready to leave, you know, a lot of people have their phrases, you know, about whatever, you know, let's hit the road or whatever. I would always say regulators mount up.
yeah, and you know what though? I think we've all seen the meme on Facebook. You know, somebody was at work and they yelled regulators, and nobody said, you know, mount up. And I feel, you know, yeah, I think if somebody yells regulators, you have to say that part. It just it's important in life, right? It's a necessity.
Right.
I guess
that was awesome. I knew with the first topic, I didn't know the actual thing that so I like that. I found that very, very informative, and I appreciate that, George.
Yeah, you're gonna have to once you get this book. Once I give it to you, you have to read it. And I'm thinking I'm getting the other book that I just found out about this morning. I think I'm gonna get that and read that.
Awesome! I can't wait, and I'll take special care of it.
Hey, I got a better idea. We could all get in the car and go down to Sumter and see if we can find them.
Yeah. You know,
Come out. Let's go. Oh,
let's go.
Wait, you didn't mean tonight. Damn it!
Yeah, sorry.
weird story.
Right, let's go.
A really strange story is when I was stationed in El Paso. A friend of mine, his family, I had met his family. They had come down and I'd met them, and they invited me up for Thanksgiving. And the two of us drove, and I didn't realize it at the time, but the highway we were on was like 2 miles away from Fort Sumner. But it was like 2:00 in the morning, and we weren't gonna stop and get arrested for trying to dig through the graveyard or something.
Flashlight.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because you wouldn't be here today. And
Right.
so, did you have another one, George? I can't remember if you had one or two things to talk about, or
No, that was the one that you and I really wanted to talk about. So
absolutely. And by the way, I'm not opposed to having a movie watch party sometime and watching that movie. I'm just saying, I don't care. It's one of my favorite movies. Yep, and I used to say that all the time in school. I used to say a bunch of lines from that movie, but yeah, I got it.
Which one, Billy Kid or Young Gun?
All of them. All of them.
Okay, yeah.
Like, so I'll give you an example. So like in part 2, when they go to Jesus, I am just drawing a blank. Anyways, and he points the gun at the Mexican. He's like, "Hey, drop Sam Colt, right?" I used to say that to people in school just because I'm an idiot, you know, and that also leads me, you know, to always reciting like Dr. Dirty and Andrew Dice Clay in school too. But that's just me thinking I'm a movie star, but I'm not. So, but yeah, but I love those movies. So yeah, that was great, George. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, so we got about 10 minutes before we go to commercial break. So I'll bring up one real quick, and I'm not trying to be political. I'm not trying. So, this is what I find unexplained things. Okay. And again, this is just my opinion. It's not of the show. I'm not saying anybody's bad. But how many times have you heard somebody come on TV and say something along the lines of 300,000 undocumented people, right? Now, this was actually a conversation I had with my sister the other day. This is what got me thinking. How can they sit there and say that people are undocumented, but they have the exact number?
Right. Exactly.
Just stop and think about it real quick.
Mhm.
You know, like they always say, like, you know, there's 100,000 people coming across the border that are undocumented, or there's 50,000 people in New York. Okay, wait a minute.
Mhm.
But they're undocumented. But how do you
know?
where is that number? How do they come to that number? What's your guys' thoughts on that? Speak freely.
Yeah. I don't know that. I think the ones that are, I think the side that wants it to sound more are just everybody. Obviously, they're taking a guess, but one side's inflating it and the other side is deflating it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's basically what it is.
Well, you're right.
I was thinking that the agencies that take them in or help and assist, maybe they're giving the government some numbers.
Maybe.
Okay, I never thought of that. Okay.
Food pantry or housing or something.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I just never thought about it. So, like to me, when I hear undocumented, that means like there's no knowledge of a person or whatever.
Right.
You know,
to get an exact number, right?
Exactly. You know,
You can
I mean,
forecast it. Yeah.
I think it would be more believable if somebody said, you know, if a person on TV, whether it be a president or senator and or whatever, could say there is an unknown number, I would be like, oh, okay, I agree with you. But so I was thinking about this. I'm like,
Estimated or an estimated 200,000, you know, whatever.
right. Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
I think undocumented means no papers.
Right.
Okay.
Not really the fact that there's no documentation or no known record or number. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just playing the devil's advocate.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, like, so when I think of it, it's what I thought. Like, you know, okay, if it's undocumented, then how do you know? And then, first of all, why do we have undocumented? I mean, I'm just saying, I get it, but so it was just really strange to me. Like, you could hear a weird number, you know. So
Or 1,976.5. Really specific.
Jeff's
And
looking for the 0.5, and you know what I mean by that.
yes, I do, shuttlecock. But
Oh,
Eric, go ahead.
no, like the undocumented, and then you have undocumented illegals, and you have illegals. So how do you consider undocumented? You know, is that considered just because they don't have like any paperwork, or is it because they're just border crossers? Nobody caught them. Well, how do you prove the ones they never caught? They see them go over, but what are they doing? Video, you know, surveillance. They can maybe track them down that way, possibly. But if they're not documented, unless they go to that other country and get documentation of where they're coming from and try to identify them that way, you know, through like, you know, government agency, CIA, whatever, things that are just like looking at people that are bad or trying to escape from something, you know. But other than that, I don't see how they have an exact number. I honestly don't. I don't think it's true, no matter who talks about it at either side. You know,
Right.
Right.
what George was saying. You know, is it inflated with what is inflated by,
Right.
or deflated, one way or the other. I mean, really, the only true way they really know is the ones that truly come across the border.
Right.
You still could come across the border and still be that way, right? Undocumented. Just because you
Yeah.
cross, it doesn't mean you're documented at anything.
Mhm.
You're going to visit a country. If you go over, just like you do any country, Canada or Mexico or whatever, to visit, doesn't mean you're documented. So
Right.
just because you cross that, and I think that politically, in my opinion, not saying anything about any side, I think that's what they're looking at. They're taking those numbers that they got, and then they're inflating them and forecasting it to either put fear into people, to scare them that there's way more people in this country that should be in here, and they're using the border crossings to do that. But in theory, it's really not true. It's a forecasted number. And if you don't support that particular immigrant or whatever coming into our country, you're going to believe it no matter what they say. My opinion. That's how I feel about it.
No, because like I would never know the exact amount. So I think what when they say something like that, they want people like me to believe. Oh, okay, so there's 300,000. That's great, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Right. But I truly think they do it off border crossing. Period. I'm not saying they're legally people coming in. I mean, there's still people coming in the country that they may not catch.
And you'll never
see
that. Right.
Like ask like many questions. I mean, I don't know if you've been over the Canadian border, but I've been over several times, and every time you go there, the agent is asking a different question. They may be really in depth. They may be nothing. Have a nice day. There's all different things. So if they're doing that with all kinds of different people coming across, your guess is as good as mine.
I've been across the southern border when I was in El Paso, went over to Juarez several times, many times.
Yeah.
First of all, to get out of this country and into Mexico, I had to pay a quarter. Don't
Really?
ask, don't know. The Mexicans are the ones getting the quarter. I don't know. Mexico's getting the quarter. But to get back in, I just flashed my ID, and it seemed rather quick. Like, that's all it was. I just showed my ID card, and that was it. But it seemed really fast. It's like, I don't know. There was probably 300 people on the bridge as we crossed, and we were all through in like 5 or 10 minutes. So someone easily could have slipped through with the rest of us.
Absolutely.
And you said you went to Juarez? Seriously?
And this is like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, because obviously we went over to Juarez to get drunk and came back. So
you must not have got too drunk. You must not have got too drunk. You made it back.
Yeah.
So,
well, we didn't go alone. Never go alone. That's a border town. Never go alone to a border town.
yeah,
Ever.
Just before we go to commercial break, and I'm going to piggyback off what George said. When we went on our first cruise, we docked right outside of Mexico. You had to walk over a bridge. And you all know me, right? I'm not shy. I'm very talkative, right? So once you come off the bridge and you hit Mexico, you're basically like screwed, okay? And I'm going to try to keep this short so we don't go over. 5 minutes there, I'm sitting there just, being myself. The fucking militia drive through. I'm talking those big, I shit you not. I'm like, oh, this is real. This is like, I'm just going to shut up and I'm just going to sit here and I'm not going to look at anybody. And just one more minute and then we'll go to commercial break. We do a Jeep excursion with like 10 other people, right? Our tour guide, Paco, yep, that's his name. He takes us to a underground garage. That's where we get our Jeeps. I think we're going to die. True story. We're driving along somewhere in Mexico, Cozumel, Mexico. He stops and gives a beer to a cop. I'm like,
no way.
No. If I'm lying, my house can cave in on me. I'm like, no fucking way. I'm like, holy shit. Towards the end, Have you ever watched those movies or TV shows where like they're driving, those big leaves are out covering the road? That's what we're driving through. And I remember I look over to Jay, I said, this is where we die. So Paco pulls over, right? I'm actually a little scared because there's nobody around except for like the beach over here. And he just abruptly pulls over and I'm like, fuck, this is where we die. He goes, oh, hey, you guys want a picture of everybody? And we're all like, so I'll tell more of that story. No, I'll tell more of that story another time. But we're just going to go to a commercial break. Just don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. But my whole point was, don't fuck around in Mexico. Because when I saw the militia, I was like, mm-hmm. So, all right, don't go anywhere. Be right back. Recording. But anyways, yeah, if you just take the jumper cables and you hook them up to the mannequin, it makes it fun for an interesting night. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We had some technical difficulties. What we talk about during the break. Sorry about that. But yeah, so we are back with JK's Rewatchable Hour. I have some awesome people. I have George, Becky, Jackie, and Eric. We are talking unsolved mysteries and unexplained things. In the first episode, we talked about Billy the Kid in Mexico, and we talked about, some weird numbers that are thrown out by the media. Does anybody have another unexplained topic or anything like that?
I've got one that there's been a lot of conspiracy theories about, and there was a lot of investigations afterwards, and there was a lot of speculation when it happened. It happened back in 1997. Let me get to the right date here. It was, hang on. I've got all this right here. Hang on. August 31st, 1997, in Paris, when Princess Diana was killed in a car accident. There was a lot of theories about what was going on at the time, and whether the royal family had a hand in setting up the accident or whatnot. One of the first things they were talking about was that she was engaged to the man that she was with, Dodi Fayed, and that she was pregnant, and that royal family didn't want a stepchild that was a different race, which nowadays you kind of see it, but I don't think they would stoop that low. Maybe they would. But as a result of that crash, she went from one section of the tunnel to one hospital that they had to bypass because they couldn't handle that bad of a injury. And then they went on to another hospital, and it normally would have taken a regular ambulance like about 10 minutes to get her extricated out and on the way to the hospital. Once they get her loaded, it would have been like 10 minutes or less. And it took over 2 hours for them to get from the crash site to that hospital. And it wasn't because of all the vehicles out there. What it was she went into cardiac arrest in the ambulance. And, if you think about it in the way we do things here, if someone goes into cardiac arrest in the ambulance, they rush. They try and get them to the hospital ASAP. But as I was reading, apparently in France, they stop the ambulance and they get the person stable before they start to go, which it makes sense now. But they said they didn't want to jar the princess and make her injuries worse. I mean, the woman they just crashed into a concrete barrier.
Oh, right.
Tunnel. She was not wearing a seatbelt. She went flying. Out of 3 out of 4 people that were in that car died from that. And it was the whole thing was just really messed up. They were talking about how Queen Elizabeth set it up, or how Charles set it up, and supposedly Charles wasn't going to be able to get married because he was divorced. So they had to make sure that she was actually dead before he could actually get married. And it kind of makes things look a little weird. And the fact that they were trying to say that Diana and Dodi were married, but or not married, but engaged. But did you realize they had only known each other for about 45 days? So I really don't think they were engaged.
Oh.
Yeah, supposedly she met him like July 14th, and it was August 30th when she died, 31st. There's how do you they said
Right.
that there was an engagement ring that was bought that day, and there was a lot of stories about that, but it turns out that engagement ring was not bought that day. It was actually bought after they died by his father. His father was trying to say that they murdered his son because of Diana, and there was a lot of investigations that followed just up until the 2000s because of it, and they were trying to say that there was a flash in the tunnel, like they tried to do with like they did with Milosevic. There's a flash in the tunnel and the driver lost sight and crashed into a thing. There were only 3 witnesses to that crash that said they saw a flash. But was it the flash from the car because they were going at a high rate of speed through the tunnel, and it turned out that the driver was extremely intoxicated, but he looked like he wasn't because he was an extreme alcoholic. So how someone can drink like 4 or 5 drinks and they don't look like there's anything wrong with them, whereas someone like me, I have one and I'm like slurring my words and telling you how much I love you. So it's there was a lot of interesting things that I was reading about this, and it basically comes down to the fact that they were not wearing seatbelts. They hit a concrete barrier at a high rate of speed. There was one other thing I read that it said that Henri Paul, who was the driver, was working for some type of secret service over in Europe, and he was paid to basically go on a suicide mission like this, and that when they did the toxicology reports, that the levels of carbon monoxide in his body were so far out there that he couldn't even been standing. I was reading that and I'm like, okay. And someone tried to say that it was because of the airbags that went off. And it turns out that those airbags in that Mercedes do not contain carbon monoxide. So how would it, contribute to it? And it turns out they messed up and said that they messed up and switched blood vials with someone else that was in the hospital that was a suicide victim. There's a lot of crap that went on with this whole, that both them dying. She was chased by the press for years.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And the
That's what I remember.
paparazzi was there, and some of them, they did destroy the film that a lot of them had because the paparazzi was actually following them. And
so
they
that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. So that's my only knowledge. That's the only thing I remember hearing was high rate of speed. I do remember something vaguely about the driver being intoxicated, but obviously the rumors and speculation was the paparazzi was trying to capture all of these pictures, obviously of something, and that's what made him crash. I mean, I don't have any other knowledge.
It said, let's see, there was that. I'm just going through because I've got it right here, and it. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. They're saying the high carbon monoxide, but it was switched with somebody else's, and it turns out that they found that over in France and England they found that the paparazzi was not at fault. They found all fault with Henri Paul, who was the driver, because apparently he was under the influence, supposedly.
Right.
But there was also supposedly she told her butler that she feared for her life because of the royal family, and she thought they were going to cause an accident in her car. So, but Charles said it can't be true because he didn't know about it. And I'm like, well, of course you're going to deny it.
Sure.
There was a lot of things saying it was mostly Prince Philip because he was doing that to keep the calm in the family. He was, He's married to the queen. All of his children were the next in line, and it just didn't look good.
Right.
And I'm just sitting here. I'm going through everything on this one thing. It's saying that Dodi's father, Mohammed, made was it 175 different conspiracy theories that they had to investigate. That's why it took so long. He had 175 different little reasons for them to look up, like about the ring and the pregnancy, and it was found she wasn't pregnant, and there was, she wasn't incapacitated by alcohol, and neither was Dodi, and nobody actually physically killed them. It was a result from an accident, which accidents do that. We do know
Yep.
that,
Yep.
but it was just the fact that they took forever to get her to the hospital. That was a big thing for me, and I didn't understand that at all for years until I was reading about it. Apparently in France, that is their protocol, is if somebody starts to get very unstable or dies, it goes into cardiac arrest, they stop moving that ambulance and start life-saving measures until they can get them stable again.
Unless it's with royalty.
No, with royalty, it took them 2 hours to get her to the
And they'll
hospital.
stall you more.
But the fact is the one EMT that found her, and she looked at him and said, "My God, what's happened?" He said that she looked okay, other than she was banged up, and she, they loaded her into the ambulance, and you don't see the inside damage. You don't know what actually happened to her at that moment. And he thought she was going to be okay, and for her to go into cardiac arrest that quickly, and the fact that you can cause someone to go into cardiac arrest in a closed ambulance, nobody's going to see it.
Right.
So that was another thing that was on the theories, and I'm just, there was no camera footage of it either, whereas almost everywhere else in that tunnel had a CCTV camera right there to record everything, but apparently they didn't work that night in that spot.
Of course not.
So
Well, right.
Jackie,
I'm just going through here finding all these little things that I just didn't know about.
Well, like who knows? It could have been the driver of the
Yeah.
vehicle. Could have had something going on with a paparazzi, saying, "Hey, if you do
Yeah.
this, and we can get a shot angle or something of this or that or whatever, we'll throw you a few bucks." All that stuff goes on with that kind of stuff.
And it could have been just like a Jack Ruby thing, like with the Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald on his way to his arraignment. So Lee Harvey Oswald never got a trial. We just said and so that leads back to it. Jack Ruby was sick and dying. He had cancer. So that money that he was basically paid to go walk up to him and kill him, that went right to his family. So, Henri Paul's family, maybe he had something going on, or maybe he didn't even think, because he was the driver for a lot of these, higher, well-known people, that celebrities, royalty, and all that. Maybe he thought he was invincible and got behind the wheel and said, hey, you can get some good pictures of her. I'll be going in the tunnel. And, we don't know, but it's, obviously, she died from cardiac arrest. We get that. But did somebody cause that accident? Did other than, just the driver being impaired? And was he really impaired?
Was the ambulance messed with?
Yeah,
of course, we will never truly know the full documents like that. Jackie, did you have something you wanted to say earlier? Oh, but Becky, with what you're saying, obviously, like, we're only going to know what they want us to know. So, and we'll just.
And then there was the white Fiat that supposedly hit the car and sped out of the tunnel.
So where's that?
Yeah, there was. There was analysis of the wreckage of the Mercedes revealed it had glancing contact with a white Fiat Uno car, which left traces of paint on the Mercedes bodywork. And supposedly this car belonged to someone here, and they disposed of the car in October of 97. And the car had like over 202,000 miles on it. So I'm like, so it was like a piece of crap old car, and it was sold in October of 97. So, it was the last day of August where she died. So they probably hid it for a month, and
That right there is kind of suspicious.
yeah, I was reading about this. I was like, I never heard about that. Apparently, there was a white Fiat that supposedly hit it, and then there was I'm just going through here.
Once again, JK's Rewatchable Hour has caught onto a car on Unsolved Mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And it was white.
It supposedly
time.
belonged to a
No,
22-year-old
blue.
taxi driver at the time of the crash, named I can't pronounce French words, so I'm not even gonna bother. And it said that he was an agitated man driving the car.
Yeah, some things will just never
They poo-poo. I can't say his name. I'm terrible. I can't speak anything. Lay Van Than. Thom. I don't know. LEVANTHANH.
You know, the
Sure.
whole sad part of thing of all this that you've been talking about. At the end, I mean, the family suffers. They don't get no answers, but all the people that were probably part of the whole thing made millions and billions of dollars for years talking about it.
Those boys were like, what? William was like, what, 15, and Harry was 12 at the time. They lost their mother, and they weren't even home when it happened. They were at Grandma's castle in Balmoral in Scotland. Balmoral, is that? Yeah, Balmoral.
Somewhere's over there.
Yeah, it's her favorite castle she had over in Scotland there. Balmoral, I think that's what it was. And Charles went in and had to tell the boys what had happened. And I remember seeing the funeral, and I actually felt really bad for Harry because he just looked so lost. And supposedly,
which is understandable.
Yeah, I mean, he just lost his mother, and it's being televised, and the queen all of a sudden put the royal flag on her coffin, which is, if once you're out of the royal family, that does not happen. And
right, you're out.
The fact that she was going to keep her title, other than it was taking her Royal Highness off, but she would still be known as the Princess of Wales, even though her and Charles were divorced. And it's the whole thing was just, it was sad. I remember hearing about it, and it was sad. And I watched the funeral, and Elton John did that the version of Candle in the Wind that he only performed at her funeral. He will not perform it anywhere else. He said they could play it on the radio, they could play the footage on TV, but I am not singing that again. And he did a great job with it. Apparently, he was a really good friend of hers. And watching these things, and the kids lost their mother, and the fact that the woman who we were told could never be a queen, the queen changed the rules so that way Camilla could become queen consort. I'm like, which basically means married to the king, you're the queen. I'm like, okay, that's and the whole royal family. I mean, I guess I'm glad we're not really involved in that type of thing here, because I mean that drama is just as bad as our politics here. But
I don't see us killing each other, so
I mean that funeral was watched by more people than her wedding was. And it was like, it was beautiful, and it was sad, and I'm like, how do they? I just watching the way they processed it, and the fact there was also the fact that they embalmed her like in less than 24 hours, I do believe, so they could send her back to England. And I'm like, you really shouldn't be doing it that quick, because that kind of wipes out everything. If there's any traces of anything, that's gone now. I did read that she was less than 24 hours. I mean, Dodi had to get buried right away because he was Jewish, and they have to be buried by the next sunset. So that's why, yeah.
You know, the best thing about this show is obviously we knew about Billy the Kid. I had no idea what anybody was gonna bring up and talk about. And when you were saying, 1997, I'm thinking like, okay, and I had no idea. And I thought that was I liked that one. I mean, there was some stuff that you said. I was like, oh, and then you brought up the Fiat, which
Yeah.
The
Not
moment
a
you
lot of
said
people heard of that. Yeah, I was a lot of this stuff I was just reading this past week, and I was like, wow, that's kind of out there.
Mhm.
It's-
And once again, JK's rewatchable hour catches something about a vehicle and that nobody really talks about.
yeah, the white Fiat, the
The
Blue
green
Audi. What is
or
it? Blue?
Audi.
Chevy, and that other vehicle with Florida plates.
What?
Yeah.
I can't remember what color that was.
We
I thought it was
suck.
a blue Audi, but I could be wrong.
Was it yellow or was it
I
green?
don't-
Or blue? Something with Florida plates.
I thought it was green. But that was excellent, Becky. Very,
Did the
very.
green Chevy have Florida plates?
Brought back some 90 memories there.
Did that green Chevy have Florida plates? They could have traced
Hold
that
on.
if that's the case.
Give me a moment. I
Uh-oh.
got it all right here somewhere.
Yeah, it was a.
Because I didn't know anything about a car with Florida plates. I never heard about that one.
Yeah, because
I
that's
just
the one
heard
thing
about-
I caught on when we
I
talked
only heard
about
about the
was.
dark colored vehicles following her and the
But it
green
had
Chevy
plates.
that they
A blue
mentioned.
Fiat with Florida plates.
Florida
Yep.
plates.
Did you say blue Fiat?
Yeah.
Yep.
Fiat suck. If there's a Fiat around, it's yeah.
Fix it again.
All right,
Stay
see?
around the- stay away from
JK's
Fiat.
watchable is on the job. So, Eric or Jackie, do you have a topic? Because I just have one more, but I want to make sure everybody gets their say.
I do have one.
Go ahead, take it.
It's about a story. Well, it's an unsolved mystery back in 1970s, and it's still ongoing. It's been 49 years since July 30th. It would have been 49 years. It was anybody knows Jimmy Hoffa. He was a Teamster union president for many, many years.
Great
he was
movie as well.
Oh yeah, really good movie. And it explains it pretty well in that movie. But I was thinking of that, and he was born in back in Valentine's Day, 1913 is when he was born. And he held the office of the presidents of the Teamsters Union since 1957 to 1971, and not shortly after that is when he, was mysteriously disappeared.
Period.
And it was actually 1975 is when he was, that happened in a restaurant in Michigan.
Yeah. And
In Oakland County.
if I'm not mistaken, the movie was literally based on actual 100% facts. And
From what they had, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean,
what
I didn't get was, I've seen stories about it, and you think, there's ways to dispose of bodies, obviously, and those that were involved obviously were professionals at this. I'm not, but from watching, gangster movies and mob movies for like my whole life, because I absolutely love them. But they could have cooked him on that spit for barbecue, and people could have eaten him. That is possible. That's gross, but it is possible. They could have thrown him in the pit and burned him alive because they're roasting pigs on that. And by the time they get done pulverizing the ashes at the end, no one's going to see it. That was one thing. And another thing, they also had those pigs. Do you know a pig, a bunch of pigs that are hungry can devour a human body, and they will, there's no trace because they're just going to shit it out. And, so that was three different things about his disappearance that kind of, sparked something in me, but it's all possible. We don't know.
absolutely.
I mean,
100%
he also could have faked his death and gone into the witness protection program. We don't know.
He's buried in the
Well,
Meadowlands.
Well, that's
Meadowlands?
Yeah.
John says he's buried in Meadowlands.
No, wait, hold on. But so, ladies and gentlemen, that's Sideshow John. That's Becky's better half. That is what I was going to come up with or tell. That is like a ongoing belief that he was buried somewhere in the Meadowlands, like where the stadium is.
Right.
He just don't fuck with it.
And they actually checked again after they built the second Giant Stadium. And
Yeah.
did a little more research on it than they did the first time. The first time it was the big talk was they dug up the end zone because they thought he was in the end zone and all that kind of stuff. Yep. There's a lot to it. It's sad that, it's sad it happened, but, why it happened, where he went, I have my opinion on it. I think that it's kind of a sick way of saying it, but I think he could have ended up in like a metal recycling place and could have went through a certain machine.
Oh yeah, they
and
did
then
that.
melted down, and he's now part of a building.
For our listeners, I highly recommend going and watching the movie Hoffa. Go ahead, George.
When we were doing our first show, I actually had this written down. One of the theories is that someone that they knew owned a chemical plant, and they actually poured him into dumped him into the acid vat, and he dissolved.
Very well, yeah. I mean,
it happened too.
I mean, we're all familiar with the movie, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, Jackie, have you seen the movie? Jackie, you're muted, Jackie. Unmute yourself, Jackie. Wait, hold on. Let me get some soft 70s porn music. Hold on. Okay, go ahead. Speak. Yes, Jackie.
Anyway, I've seen pieces of it, but I couldn't recall the whole movie.
Okay, so basically at the end of the movie, and I'm sorry if I'm going to spoil for anybody who's never seen it, listening to this or watching, they're sitting at the roadside. They're sitting at the
porn.
What?
The
So they're sitting at a roadside diner for like hours and hours and hours and hours, and at the end, this person shoots them, and they drive away in a truck, and he's never to be seen again. Now there's actual documentation that they were at this roadside diner. Now, whether or not that part is true, it could just be fiction. I don't know.
Well, right. Well, after they shoot him, they throw him in the car, and then
they drive up
in the truck.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. They could have took him to an auto recycler, somebody that the mafia controlled or whatever, and it's it. It's over. People can keep thinking and where he is at and all these things, and every time they build a building in a city, they think he's underneath the building, and
we'll never ever know.
No,
never.
I don't see the mafia doing that. I mean, if it was in Las Vegas, maybe. Unless he's in Las Vegas.
But he was mixed in with some Russians, so the Russian mafia mob. So that's how he got some money. But so that was a good topic. I did not know. Yeah, I love Hoffa. I love the movie. And his son actually went on to be the president of the Teamsters later in life.
Sure. Yep. Exactly.
I
actually had a chance to meet him.
No shit. Go on. Tell the story.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet him back in 2010 when I was the UAW member for 20 years, and we do a lot of stuff with the Teamsters. And in downtown Detroit, we had a big rally in 2010, and he was at the rally, and that was when I got to meet him. He actually marched right down. I can't think of it. It's the road in downtown Detroit by the GM Tower. We all kind of marched down that main drag, in support of some things we were doing up there, in support of the auto industry back when it was not doing so well. So, but he was there and he met all of us. He shook his hand, and he's one of them high powerful people that was in people. He's just like you and I and everybody else. He's in a position of power, and he kind of took after his dad, and cool guy. Really, really
Nice.
powerful speaker. Very powerful speaker.
Was this around the same time that you almost got mugged in the wintertime in Detroit?
Yep, pretty close. Yeah, it was a couple of years after that, but yeah.
So,
the Great Town Casino.
so, my headphones distorted and I couldn't hear. What did John say? Did he say porno?
He said I didn't know Jackie was into soft porn.
Oh. So I don't know what's up in my earbuds, but they distort every now and again, and I can't hear anything, and it makes like a loud.
Take your
Sideshow
cock
second.
and
Yeah.
hear it.
Go ahead, Jackie, dance to that.
Doing a hand dance.
Well, so let's say, we've talked about Billy the Kid in westerns. We've talked about Hoffa. So it's only fitting that we just throw in a gunshot. You know? I'm sorry I don't have anybody moaning on this yet, anyways. But so we have Jackie, you're killing me. So Becky, hold it together, Becky. We're almost done. Becky, George, put your pants back on.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I could give some moaning sounds for you. You could use.
It's gotta be real. It's gotta be realistic, babe. Pin down, let's see Bush. Go to it.
Oh, I'm not gonna have video proof. How will you ever know?
Yes. That's a show for another show.
I'm just letting Jackie and Sideshow John take over the show. So
You gotta get me arrested. You crazy?
That sounds like it's just another night in
like
Seneca
fun.
Falls.
They'll have to break out the fucking Vaseline. That's not gonna be a good thing, kid.
all I heard was,
We've got 2 jars of mayo in the cupboard. Come on, we're set.
Oh no.
oh, I thought he said he needed some Vaseline for his butt. So my hearing. I'm sorry. As always,
We're set.
Becky, show us your fingers right now.
It's
I
green.
knew I noticed on that one.
They're green.
So as always, we have completely gone off course because that's who we are, that we like to have fun. We like to joke. And tonight was not a serious topic. So if you're listening to us, we hope that you're drinking. If not, we hope you start drinking because of us. Just kidding.
When you mention midgets, porn, you take a shot.
Can we mention porn or butt plugs or mayo?
Man.
All fun and games until the butt plug gets pushed out and the cat gets shot.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Sideshow.
Poor cat.
Not my cat.
I'm just over here pushing buttons to whatever you guys say. So
I keep seeing George's like half smile and head turn.
Right.
I love it.
He's
I
got
love
something
it.
rolling in his brain. He's got something.
Better.
I love it though.
It's getting better.
I know you're smiling.
Put more of that on. You'll be good.
Yeah, put more of that on. You'll be good.
I think he just thinks we're really crazy.
it depends on where he's putting it. It might burn.
No, this is the good stuff. This is healing jelly.
It goes in both holes.
So listen, everybody, we got a couple minutes before it comes up. We do have time to do a show next week if we want to do Tuesday or Wednesday. That's up to you guys. If not, next week is
Why is there hair?
Thanksgiving.
What's that?
Nothing.
There better not be any hair in there. I'll kill fucking Casey. No. Those look like small fingerprints too. Those aren't mine.
Oh boy.
Okay.
And this whole entire time, now we know that Becky's not shaved. But anyways,
Yes, it is. Yes,
Wow.
it is.
Holy.
You ever
Okay,
seen
listen.
Chewbacca?
We were talking about the 70s, so it could be true.
This had nothing to
And
do
the
with
80s.
and you got the 70s porn stash.
All right. Oh man.
All right, listen. Because I just want to say, so next week is Thanksgiving. There really is no need to do a show, but if we have an idea and we want to do it before, like on Tuesday or Wednesday, we're all for it. If not, I want each and every one of you to have a great Thanksgiving, whether you're going to be with family and friends. I want whatever next Thursday brings. I want it to be a great night, a great day. I want you guys just to smile and be loved and be around people who love you and care about you.
I mean, I can sleep more than 6 hours? God damn.
Same to you, Jeff.
Always.
Same to you. Same
Yes,
to everybody.
I hope everybody has a great holiday. Honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just before we go over our time and we get booted off the air, my name is JK'z. I want to thank Eric, Becky, George, and Jackie. This has been JK's Rewatchable Hour. This is Unsolved Mysteries, I think like part 2 or part 3. I don't know. We learned a lot today. We found out that Becky isn't shaved and that Jackie likes soft porn music, and Eric has a porn stash. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is JK's Rewatchable Hour. I'm going to end the broadcast, but we might do some extras, so don't go anywhere. Thank you all. Love you all. Have a great night.
Yeah.